When this 89-year-old woman was kicked out of her home, a neighbor slipped a surprise into her hand. When this 89-year-old woman returned home one day in November 2016, she found that all of her possessions had been tossed onto the road, while the doors to her house were padlocked shut. As that was happening, however, her neighbor's curtains had been twitching, and seeing that their elderly friend needed help, they got together to give her a very special birthday present. Angie Tima had called the house in Hudson, Florida home for 35 years. She'd shared many of those years with her husband, to whom she'd been married for 58 years. And even after her husband passed away around 2 decades ago, Tima remained in the house, where she lived with her 2 dogs, Pepper and Ralphie. Following the death of Tima's husband, the house was bought by a family friend who was based in Europe. However, the arrangement allowed the 89-year-old to continue living in the house, paying rent to her friend while they were away. But in November 2016, that all suddenly changed. Tima's friend was facing some financial difficulties and was unable to keep up repayments on the mortgage. The lender was forced to foreclose on the property and sent it to auction, where it was picked up by an investment company. Tima, however, had no idea this had happened. In fact, the first Tima learned of the situation was on November 16, 2016. When she returned home that day, Tima was greeted by a stranger on her doorstep. It was the new owner, and it wasn't a friendly courtesy call. No, he was there to kick the elderly lady out of her home. Tima's belongings had been tossed out onto the lawn, and a padlock kept her from opening her own front door. With help from the Pasco County Human Services, the 89-year-old was only allowed access to the property the next day to collect her dentures and medicine. A neighbor, Danielle Calder, told the Tampa Bay Times, "The man was really nasty to her and told her to get out and shut up. And although the new owner gave Tima the chance to collect her belongings, she refused. Surely they would never force an old lady onto the street." Unfortunately for Tima, that's exactly what happened. Luckily, however, her neighborhood saw this all unfold, and they all pitched in to help. They collected her things and put into storage those they couldn't take in. Meanwhile, Tima and her dogs were packed off to stay in a nearby hotel where a neighbor worked. "They treated me very well," Tima told the Tampa Bay Times. Living in the hotel, however, she said, "I swear to God I felt like I was in prison." With no home and all her belongings gone, the usually feisty 89-year-old had hit rock bottom. But then she had an idea. Tima approached Calder, who lives a few doors down, and floated her an idea to buy the house back. 65-year-old Calder already had her hands full with residences in both Hudson and Boston, but could she be tempted to buy another house, if only to help her neighbor out? In an interview with Today in December 2016, Calder admitted, "Quite honestly, I didn't need another house." So was that it for Tima? Was the elderly woman and her 2 dogs destined to live in a hotel, or worse, on the streets from now on? Well, luckily, no. Instead, Calder recognized a need far greater than a new house. In the Today interview, she said, "I needed her. I couldn't see her living in a motel room. She's been here for so long. Everyone looks out for her." In fact, Calder described Tima as the fabric of the neighborhood. And so, after a discussion with her husband, Calder set about finding a way to buy the house from the company who'd bought it at auction. She managed to scrape together the $167,500 necessary to purchase it and picked up the keys. Calder then prepared the property for Tima to return home. But although Tima knew about the purchase, she didn't know what else her neighbor had planned for her. Calder had arranged for others in the neighborhood to pitch in and give their home a new lick of paint. During the revamp, they also returned Tima's possessions to their rightful place. One neighbor who helped out, Jody Griffin, had never known the community without Tima in it. He told WFLA News Channel 8, "She's been here all my life. Why would I want to see her go? If there's anything I can do to help get her back in her house, I feel like I should do it." This all happened on a Tuesday, which was coincidentally Tima's 89th birthday. The neighborhood had been hard at work to prepare for Tima's big homecoming, but the birthday girl herself had no idea what was waiting for her. It must have been one heck of a birthday present then, when Calder slipped the keys into Tima's hand. "Usually one of my neighbors bakes me a cake every year," Tima told Today, "but this time when I got out of the car and saw all these people in the media, I was in a state of shock. I was speechless," she continued. Indeed, the 89-year-old couldn't quite believe what she was seeing. "I couldn't even talk. I never expected it would make the front page." And although some of Tima's belongings were broken from the eviction, some Italian statues that belonged to her mother survived. Among them was a statue of the Virgin Mary, which takes pride of place in the front lawn. Tima told the Tampa Bay Times, "Everybody has to rub the Holy Mother, and whatever you wish for will come true." And that superstitious strategy had worked for Tima. Yes, her wish of remaining in her home and the community she'd been a part of for 35 years did indeed come true. Now the 89-year-old pays a manageable amount of rent to Calder, who told Today, "It was the right thing to do. We're family, the whole neighborhood. I did this out of the goodness of my heart, not to make money or for any other reason except that I love Angie," Calder told Today. Kind-hearted Calder then declared to the Tampa Bay Times, "She's like the mayoress of the neighborhood. Everybody knows her. She's been here for 30 years. Everybody loves her."